Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Committed and Covered, the podcast hosted this week by yours truly, Fuse. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, good afternoon.
It's good to have us all here today. Y'all excited to be here?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, my name is Tiffany, and I will be your moderator for today. And today's title is Faith, Flirt, Fact. And we're going to dive into the complexities of Christian dating, marriage, and identity in today's world. And we're going to tackle some heavy but crucial topics regarding marriage, financial giving, and sexuality, and how they have been deemed weaponizing within the Christian community. And as many of you know, this topic was discussed or highlighted by Kirk Franklin just a while ago in an interview done by Cam Newton. And so we are going to look at it from the lens of single, someone who is single, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And we're also going to add to it over 30. All right? So are y'all ready to get into it?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to look at it from the lens of single and over 30, or
Yes.
Okay.
Single and over 30.
Okay.
But anyone, if that doesn't apply to you, we still want to hear what you have to say. Okay? All right? Okay. So before I begin, I've introduced myself, but I'd also like to introduce this beautiful panelist that I have here. I'm going to start on the very end. Can you give us your name, your age or age range, and what you're excited about discussing today?
I'm Danielle. I am 26 years old, and I'm excited to talk about the marriage context of this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Danielle.
Hello. I am Juliet. I am between my 30s and 40s. Nah, joke. I'm 42. And I am excited to discuss what weaponization means and the areas that we've experienced it, whether it's been from the past, where it's been difficult, or the present, where we're growing. I'm just excited to hear the opinions of the folks on the panel, excited about the conversation.
Frederick Whitlow, most people know me as Minister Fred. I am over 40, and I'm excited about it too. I think I'm interested in one of the areas we talk about necessary distractions, as well as talking about those moves and how it moves really in life, especially as singles and those that are interested in moving towards marriage.
Okay, sounds good, Minister Fred. Thank you all. I am excited to hear what you have to say. And as always, audience, we want to hear from you. This is a conversation, a discussion, and we can't do that just with us. Well, we can, but we don't want to. We want to engage you and hear your thoughts. So Danielle on the end, wave to them, Danielle. Danielle will be monitoring the chat, and we want to hear what you have to say. And when you do, we'll include as much as we can into the conversation. So are y'all ready to get down to it?
Yes,
All
ma'am.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so I want to set the scene here, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Just imagine that, and I feel like we've felt this pressure before, some of us, okay? So imagine this, you're at the family cookout or some family gathering.
Yes.
We've already identified that we're over 30. This is a conversation for over 30. And you get that stupid old question that we often get still.
Right.
Which is what, y'all?
Are you married yet? You got some kids?
Absolutely. Are you married yet? And if you're not, why aren't you married yet? And when are you going to get married? And when you
And
going to
what's
have?
wrong with you?
Correct, that part.
What's really going on?
What's
Right.
really going
What is the problem,
Yeah,
bro?
what's your problem, right?
Yeah.
So we all have experienced that, or maybe we've experienced the subtle or not so subtle pressure from the church, right?
Yeah.
Making you feel like marriage is the ultimate stamp of spiritual approval. So if that's you or if that's someone you know, this is a conversation for you. We're going to get into it. We're going to unpack these topics, and again, inspired by comments that Kirk Franklin stated. And we're going to also try to talk about these pressures and then talk about ways in which we can find a path that truly aligns us with God's will for our lives, whether that be married or single, right?
Yes.
Yep.
'Cause I think we've already established, based on our last podcast, that God can still use us when we're single. Is that correct?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we're going to get into it. So for those of you who may have been under a rock or just haven't really been on social media, you know, I don't know what you're doing. You're busy doing the things that you should be doing, unlike
my
us
gosh.
scrolling away. Let me just bring you up to date about this conversation. So Cam Newton has a podcast,
Yes.
and his last guest was Kirk Franklin, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
so there was a point in time in which he asked Kirk about his wife and just how did they get together and just to share that journey. And in a part of Kirk's response, he talked about marriage and about the church. And let me get my notes so I say it correctly. All right. So his response, he challenged the traditional Christian narrative surrounding marriage and singleness. He argued that the church has weaponized marriage, making it a false measure of spiritual success. Franklin also stated that this pressure not only places unnecessary burdens on individuals and also leads people into marriages that are not necessarily rooted in God's will, but rather in societal or religious dogma. Franklin also reminded us that the Apostle Paul called marriage an unnecessary distraction. We're going to talk about that later, right? All right, so stay tuned. And then Kirk Franklin emphasized that singleness does not, what did I say?
Does not.
Does not diminish a person's ability to be used by God, nor should marriage be seen as a prerequisite for divine favor or purpose. So we're just really going to dive in right now. I want to hear from you all. First of all, did you watch at least the clip or the interview? Have you all seen it?
Oh, yes, we have.
Yeah.
You saw
I
it?
watched
Okay.
it all the way through.
You watched it? Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Okay, watch it
Yeah,
on
dope.
three. You saw the clip. Okay. Do you agree with his statement? And first, let me just say, let me read the statement again. So, marriage, financial giving, and sexuality have been weaponized within the Christian community. Do we agree?
Yeah. Oh, do we agree that it has been weaponized?
Yes. Do we agree that it
I believe
has
it
been?
has been in some
You want
ways.
to take the lead on that?
Oh, you want me to take the
Yeah,
lead?
you take the lead on that one.
Oh, well. So, first I'm thinking, when we talk about marriage, spirituality, and he said what?
Financial giving. So giving.
Giving
Giving.
has
And
been
sexuality.
weaponized. I think a number of things have been weaponized, but first I'd like to, before I go into the space of weaponized, can you guys kind of tell me what your definition of weaponized is?
Yeah, I was thinking on that.
And kind of, because I have a definition of weaponized, and I want to make sure that I'm articulating it well.
Okay.
And in my head, when I think of weaponized, I believe it means that it's been used as a tool to either control, to make you feel less than, to make you feel in a box, or to make you, what is it called when you give in? You subscribe to things that you may not have necessarily understood or believed, but because you don't want to not be a part, then you may give in to those things without understanding for yourself. So that's my...
Girl, you asked for a definition and you gave a good one.
No, it's good, though.
That was a good one. I think you described it well. Do we have anybody else that wants to chime in to that definition or add to it? Audience, do you guys have a thought on what you think?
Well, let me
Okay.
jump in here. In what you just said, I think that is absolutely spot on. I think the other thing about weaponizing is that the motive is not a shared motive. I think when we weaponize things, whether it's political, whether it's family, whether it's relationship, it's really one-sided, because at the end of the day, you're not taking everybody in consideration and saying, okay, what's best for us as a couple? What's best for us as a group? Whether it's Fuse or whether it's a tour or whether it's whatever the case may be. And I think the other thing about weaponization is that it's jaded. It's a jaded philosophy. So whether you're talking about giving or you're talking about relationships, it's jaded because you don't have everybody's opinion at the table.
Right.
You're not considerate. And many times, not all the time, but most time we're going to do this so we can get this.
Yeah.
And everybody else is out the picture.
So it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is one, it's a method of control.
Correct.
And a way to kind of weed out the less thans.
Ooh, yeah.
Or what they consider, whoever
the less
considers
than.
the
Or
less
those that
than.
are quiet or just they're just silent in the conversation.
Which doesn't mean they don't have an opinion.
Right,
It just
right.
means they're silent.
Correct.
Can I add one more thing to
Sure.
weaponization? Weaponization can be intended or unintended.
That's
and
right.
that's the point
That's
I wanted
true.
to make because people mean well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, we all do. But sometimes our actions, our words can have unintended consequences. So when we say weaponization, it's not necessarily people are purposely trying to hurt anyone
Yeah.
or anything
Right.
like that. Or some people might be, but I think
That's
for the
not always
most
the
part,
case.
that's not really
Yeah.
usually the case. It's unintended consequences of people's words because even like family asking you where's your man or where are your kids and all that, they might really want that for you, but there's a way that they're phrasing it or
Right.
the repetition can be harmful.
Agreed. So, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Juliet. Yeah.
And then I think too, what we don't realize is that what I think is beautiful, and we kind of talked about this before beginning, is that we don't realize that over time we've been taught this pattern through our generations of weaponization, right? And we're getting
gonna say
into a generation in a space where we're learning how to reframe and rewire the ways that we've been teaching one another that have been harmful, even in our unintended behaviors.
Right. Agreed. That's what I was going to say.
The other thing too, you said that, it made me think. A lot of times weaponization is not just control, but it's fear.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. It's
just,
usually
I'm
rooted
uncertain,
in
so
fear.
I'm gonna just
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then
Absolutely.
And so it just takes away from the authenticity of progress. I think
Yes.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back. Are we saying that we do agree with his statement that there are instances in the church when those three things and more, as you stated, are weaponized within the Christian community? Is that what are we saying we agree or how?
Go ahead.
Well, I agree. I think what made me stop and listen to Kirk Franklin was one, just the calmness in how he was communicating. I can hear people more in their sense of calm, especially men. And so in the calmness in how he was communicating, and in addition to him being a married person speaking on those things, it wasn't a space of, I like that word you used earlier because it hit me, it was the lesser thans. It was really communicating some authenticity. Hey, Robbie's online. It was really communicating some authenticity in the space of what that experience is, because I don't think that weaponization just happens with singles.
Oh, absolutely
It
not.
happens in a lot
No.
of spaces, and so I really agreed, and I felt connected because I felt like someone is saying the things.
Yes. You know, oh my goodness. So we talked about that. You and I talked about that last night. We talked about how Kirk was saying the thing. These are conversations we have privately
Yeah,
all the time,
yeah.
within our circles. But he had the power and the comfort to voice them out loud and to bring light to them. And I do like you said, that he did so as a married man.
Yeah,
It's not even
yeah.
something he's really particularly dealing with at this moment, but he still recognized that it was something that's still happening.
You know, the other thing too, I really appreciate it, and I do agree I love the fact, and shout out to Cam Newton for taking the time to address those kind of conversations that a lot of times
Yeah.
we think about, but we won't say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'll say them too.
Oh yeah.
Cam
Oh,
Newton.
Yes.
all the time.
Yeah. We'll say whatever.
Yeah, you know that.
Yes.
But what I love about the conversation that you were referring to with Kirk Franklin is, I love the fact that he chose to do that in a very objective way, given that he is married, right? And others of us are not married.
Right.
But he did it in a way that would make a significant difference where you have to really think through, okay, so
Yeah.
if this is where I am, how do I do this successfully
Right.
and still be a blessing as a witness?
Right.
So he didn't take the authenticity out. He didn't
Right.
take the fact that we're the only Jesus some may ever see.
Right.
He didn't take any of that
Right.
out.
No,
He was
that's
just
true.
like, I'm gonna be 100. You can
Right.
be 100% male, female, and be
Right.
struggling and still be like, I choose God.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna do this because there's a pattern and there's a design that God created.
And you're hitting
And it's
the
like
nail on the
real
head.
talk. And people want authenticity,
Yes,
whether
they
it's
do.
right or wrong. And to be right and spot on and be authentic.
Yep.
And still be like, I still love the Lord, but this is what I'm struggling with. Oh, I can
Absolutely.
relate.
Absolutely.
And it gives you hope.
It does, absolutely. And so two things that you said, or that I thought of as you were speaking. One, sometimes it takes the right person to say the right thing. So we all can say it, but I think coming from Kirk Franklin, the platform he has, the space he's in, and like Juliet said, just the way in which he said it, I think it resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for people, but I assume
Oh, for sure.
the way in which he did so and spoke to it and who he was, it resonated. Whereas if people don't know me, I mean, y'all know me, hey. But if I said it, it wouldn't hold the same weight as someone like that. So I appreciated, again, them having that conversation and on that platform.
And
Yeah,
Cam brought that out too. Cam brought that out. His
Yeah.
appreciation for Kirk,
Yeah.
just as an individual.
Yep.
And like
Sure
his
did.
whole, about the father.
Yeah.
And that was
Yep.
his best
Yep.
piece, and then
Yeah.
his favorite song.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was because he was going through something similar.
That's
in
right. He sure
vulnerability.
did say that. Yep.
Yep, and I just wanted to check. I'm sorry. I just wanted to check in the chat. I see a couple of people are commenting. I'm glad you
Yeah.
all are in there. I see Denise, and then I see that James Roberts said, "It's not just SDA.
That's right.
It's Christianity across the board."
That's
and I
right,
can't lie,
Robbie.
it took me a long time to kind of recognize that, because when
Yeah.
you have been brought up just in your religion, that's what you are
Yeah,
aware
that's your
of,
bubble. That's what
right?
you know, yeah.
Especially growing up from childhood, if you grew up in this environment. And so then you start realizing, okay, this is a broader issue, and how did this issue develop? But that could go into a whole
conversation.
Well,
Right.
But he addressed
He
that.
did.
He did.
Yeah.
I forgot that
Kirk
part.
said, I grew up Baptist. Cam grew up Pentecostal.
He
you
shouted
got-
out
you grew up
SDA
Seventh
too.
Day.
Yeah.
No, he
was
said.
like,
He sure did.
It was crazy. And again, as long as you're in a bubble, you're missing other bubbles.
Yes.
are.
You're
That's
not
right.
even in the world.
That's right.
You're in a bubble,
You are.
and the
Yeah.
world around you is just.
But the
like
reality is, we all the same. We're dealing with the same things. It may look a little differently,
Yep,
but
yep.
Humans.
Exactly.
Bleeding the
That's
same
it.
blood.
Exactly.
Red.
types,
That
blood
part.
types.
Right.
I just need my blood type in my system.
Look, I need the blood of Jesus. All right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. So I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. I'm going to
Okay.
throw out another question for you guys, okay?
Bet.
So, how do you think the pressure to be married by a certain age affects one's relationship with God and the community? And this is a two-part. The second part to that is, do you think that this pressure leads people into marriages that aren't aligned with God's will, but rather with societal expectations, societal religious expectations?
Let's tackle
You
that
want to take
first.
first?
Give us that
Okay.
first, 'cause
So
that's
let
a
me
lot.
read. That is a lot, and I want to make sure we tackle both
tackle
because
it.
there's a lot of meat to both of those questions,
A,
right?
B, and C.
Okay, right, exactly.
AB negative C plus D.
D, all of the above. Okay, so here we go. Here's part A of that question.
Okay.
How do you think the pressure to be married by a certain age affects one's relationship with God and the community, or does it?
Okay.
So,
I would start by saying, I don't know if it's just me or my perspective, but I personally do not feel a pressure to be married. I don't know, it might be my age, but I get a lot of people telling me, slow down, make sure you take your time in choosing. That's what I experience. And I think the church is changing in that regard to say, to young people, take your time, don't, rush into the biggest potential decision of your life. And what was the other part of the question? I'm so
Well, we'll
sorry.
start there. That was perfect.
Okay.
No, that was perfect.
Go.
So do we think there's pressure? And if so, how does that affect one's relationship with God and the community?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say one more thing.
Sure.
To the last part of that question, I think we might internally have pressure on ourselves to say, this is my timeline. I want things to happen in this timeline. And personally, I would say I probably do that to myself,
Ditto.
giving myself pressure, but you definitely don't want to rush that decision, and because it can lead to those, unhealthy relationships, unhealthy marriages.
Absolutely.
And I was going to say, I think a lot of the pressures that have been unstated pressures. They are just known by behavior, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's unstated, for example, and we talked about this a little bit, so I won't harp on it too long. In the last, an unstated pressure is married people, you're invited to things if you're married, but if you're not invited. Or if you get divorced, you're no longer invited to married things. And if you stay married, you're still able to be a part. And so I feel like those are, and that could be inside a church and outside a church,
absolutely.
right?
Yep.
But I feel like that's just an example because it's like an unstated space of where I think people press in for whatever their different reasons are because they want to be accepted into this part of the group. And I think that also goes into, and I know we didn't get to this part of the question, I don't think.
Okay.
But that also goes into status and money and different things like that when he was talking about the weaponization of finances and different things like that. Because there is the pressure according to your environment. I know Oakwood Church is a very blessed environment, you know what I mean? And so there are spaces where either you can feel less than or you can find ways to fit that may not even be in your mission or your passion because the unstated rule is I need to be this or I need to be that in order to fit. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
I'll let me chime in. I think everybody's spot on. Another thing too, I think, is that reality. It just depends on your experience. Because I mean, some folk, like our panelist on the end, she said, it ain't a big deal. It's really what I apply to me. But then for others who have been down those paths and want to be married or want to be in a relationship and have bad relationships or their scars, then yeah, it's traumatic. It's a lot of trauma assigned to that. I had a friend I was having a conversation with just earlier, and in a situation where one is given up, and it's like, what do you do in those moments? Then you start self-defining yourself based upon the relationship versus who you are in God first, and then and what you bring to the table, your worth. So I think, yeah, it definitely just really depends on your experience and what you've been through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how you reacted to it or responded to it. So yeah, I think it's a gamut. It's really a scope.
Yeah, and I wanted to say one more thing because I saw that Robbie said in here, so how do you stop allowing the weaponizing of singleness to matter to you? And I think that goes back to that space of healing for yourself, right? It's like, I think that conversations are important because sometimes the conversations can be seen as either negative or harping or being in different spaces. But when we understand the purpose of the conversation is acknowledgement, I think oftentimes people get uncomfortable with the real things that are happening in our environments. And so then they categorize it as negative. However, it's acknowledgement because in order to heal, you have to be able to acknowledge.
That's right.
And so I think in answering that question, it is, how do we stop allowing the weaponizing of singleness to matter to you? One, us being able to acknowledge it. And then two, being able to understand who are the people that we are envisioning as those who are the weaponizers, right? And then identifying how much do they actually impact my life.
Right. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I was getting ready, trying to gather myself.
And then also the other thing too, which is amazing what you all have said, made me think is we have to understand that to be identified as single is not a bad thing.
Right,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
that's what he was saying.
Yes.
Yep.
Why do people make it like
Just because
we're outcasts?
I'm on this journey with God right now by myself doesn't mean that I'm not a bad person. Or
Absolutely.
I'm not a person worthy of any. Because God will bless you where you are.
And we've talked about this
Yeah.
every time we have a
For real,
podcast, but we say everybody want to be married.
Yeah.
That's the reality. That's not everybody's journey. There are people, I say, I want to be married, and when God has that for me, I hope I'm ready. I want to be ready, so I'm preparing myself for that. But there are many people who don't decide. They're enjoying their singleness and living their best lives in that season of their life.
One other thing, too, the question was, how do we stop weaponizing it? Is that we begin to celebrate the fact that we are doing great things and God's greatness as a single person.
That's right.
And be around and develop great friendships with others so that when it's time to make a choice, if we want to make a choice,
right.
so I, you, me, you, they, then we can make a legitimately good decision based upon what we know and have experienced in those relationships that are friend based.
Minister Fred, you're hitting the nail on the head again, because that's something. Look, here we go. That's something we talk about a lot in Fuse. How we formed Fuse under Juliet's leadership to create community, and that was missing. Not missing, but we needed that.
Yeah.
And so Juliet is really. I know I didn't want to, step on anybody else's toes, but she's really good at creating community and making sure we all feel involved and surrounded, and that we have things to do together.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be just church-based, but activity-based.
Life-based.
Exactly. And so we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, that's what Fuse is all about. So here we are talking
Look
about
at
it
this
again.
question.
Denise.
Ooh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Danielle.
Denise is asking us, but are the weaponizers happy in their marriage?
Honey, Denise.
Personally, I kind of
Denise.
see it as a form of bullying.
Look.
So, what do we think of that?
Gosh, Denise, you
know,
hit
look,
that.
that's
I
a-
wish I could
look,
see
that's
your
a
face.
rhetorical.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You are not lying, Denise.
Can we say it again? But tell us then, yeah.
But are the weaponizers happy in their marriages?
mercy.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Okay,
So-
there.
That, look, I don't even think we'll leave that right
We're
there.
gonna
leave
leave
that.
Correct.
But I have an answer. I don't know because I'm not in their marriages.
Right.
But I feel like nobody who is weaponizing anybody else's life can be happy in any circumstance.
Right.
Because
They're not
if
minding
you're
their
in-
own business.
You all in the
That means you're not doing what you don't know the flavor. Oh, you old, girl. And I knew it, so I'm old too.
No comment.
But it says, are the weaponizers in their marriage? I don't think that anybody who has so much focus on
Somebody else.
someone else, or I think that oftentimes weaponizers. It feels so bad calling people weaponizers.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like
Like,
people
what's
who
another
use
word?
weaponization are often functioning in a space of what they've been taught. I think oftentimes a lot of people in different religious spaces, and I keep wanting to bring that out because we're right, it's not just the SDA environment, but we've been taught things and have just been continuing to function based on those things as we go through life. And so there's a lot of identity crisis within religions because we're just fused. We're just fused to other people in these spaces without even understanding our own identity.
I want to
jump
take.
in.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
gotta
No,
jump
no.
in.
Yeah,
So
jump in.
listen, the other piece about what you said was so amazing is that when we think about weaponizing, that's because we're dealing with mental, emotional trauma. And instead of saying, let me go and address this and be a better me,
Right. We try to
I'm
put the
going
focus
to
on
we'll
somebody else.
either
Projecting.
we'll
Yes,
project
projecting.
it on someone else,
Absolutely.
or we'll just say, well, if I'm not going to be happy, no one else in my marriage or
And
in
Kirk
my
talks about
relationship.
that.
And he
in-
What'd he
spoke to
say?
that.
Yes, he sure
He
did.
spoke to that.
He sure did.
Really?
And let me encourage
Oh, my
y'all. I
goodness,
thought it was
yo.
a wonderful
The podcast-
interview.
it was 2 hours.
It was
It's
2.5
2
hours.
2 hours
Correct.
and 48 minutes.
Correct. It was long,
That's why I
y'all.
keep forgetting
That's my
stuff.
deal.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
It was long, but it
legit.
was really good. I
super
really
good.
enjoyed it, and so I agree. Yeah, that's true. I want to take a little commercial break because I see in the comments, Danielle. Do you see what Ivy Elizabeth asked?
Yes, Ivy
Yes.
is asking, what does FUSE stand for? And it stands for Faith Uniting the Singles Experience.
Absolutely. So just in case,
yes,
if you're
it's right
listening
here.
for the first time and
We're
you're
in the
not
church.
sure, yes, that is Oakwood University Church's Singles Ministries, and we'll give a little plug after, but that's what FUSE stands for. That's what we're here for, right?
It's all good. Plug it.
Yes.
Yes, and thank
Shameless
y'all.
plug.
Shameless
exactly.
plug. We can need some more
Shameless
colors. Y'all should give us some
plug.
ideas. I'm gonna move it
Oh.
over so you can see it fully.
Yes.
Fuse,
There you go.
Fuse.
Beautiful.
But we're gonna get us some more colors so we can make it pop, right?
That's right. All right. So I'm going to bring us back to the conversation.
Yes,
ma'am.
Second question. We just on this second question.
We knew it, honey.
Part B. But do you think that this pressure leads people into marriages that aren't aligned with God's will, but rather is aligned with societal or religious expectations?
I think it's pressure, period.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we hit it. I
It's
think
pressure.
as the time goes, not as much.
You cannot. Okay,
ahead.
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
really loud.
No,
No,
yeah.
There's no
She got
way
passionate,
you
yeah.
can be happy if you're going into a union based on someone else's perspective.
Absolutely.
And
And it's not
pressure.
going to succeed. I mean, God can do anything, but you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, God can fix it, but how many
Yeah.
years are you gonna have to be fixing? Like,
Right.
I'm
Instead of
42,
enjoying
I'm trying
it.
to walk into the
Yeah,
marriage.
there's no time for all that
I'm
now.
trying to be happy when we walk in. Trying to work through my stuff now since we
Yeah.
are here and I am
Right.
42 and not married. Let me
Right.
clear some things up so I can walk. I'm not
Absolutely.
trying to be in there fixing that.
Absolutely.
We don't want to
Yeah.
do that. But I like, and I know y'all told me not to say the whole thing, so I'm not. But on Dear Future Wifey.
But it's pointed. But that's listen what you gonna say. Listen what you gonna say.
I'm
Real
not,
talk.
Tootie, I'm not gonna say the whole thing.
Okay.
But on Dear
Yeah,
we
it's-
want to be able to
it's
come
real.
back,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, it's
Right.
dope.
But if not, just go look it up. But she'll give you the cliff
you
notes.
just go look on Dear Future Wifey.
Yeah.
Revised
Hey,
version.
Linda. She said, and Christian Rap Master.
Hey, what's up?
But on Dear Future Wifey, there was a lady that was on there, and I wish I knew her name. I wish we could look it up. But she was on the podcast with, and I'm messing everything up, but you know the podcast if you watch. I can't think of his name. If anybody
Don't
knows
worry
will you
about
put
it.
in
Look
the
up
chat?
Dear Future
Dear
Wifey.
Future
Dear
Wifey.
Future
But she
Wifey.
said, I want the mind of God and the body of a
Person.
explicit person, right? And what I thought was beautiful about it was that the honesty in her statement. Not that's everybody's goal, so don't come in the chat trying to come for me, please. But what she was talking about in that space is that oftentimes we're in this space of trying to, what am I trying to say? Put ourselves in these boxes of what we think we're supposed to be looking like. Or a man is attempting to marry someone of what if he's functioning, let me not generalize, if he or she is functioning under the pressure of what someone else told us we're supposed to do, right? So then oftentimes because of that pressure, someone marries someone they're not attracted to.
Where we talk about equally yoked. And, yeah.
They're not, and then people try to say, well, attraction doesn't matter. Yeah, it does.
yeah.
And so they're not attracted to them. And she said they can pray. What she said on the podcast. She
Pray
said
all
they
day.
can pray
I'm out.
and they can sing.
Check out.
But when I
Check
get home, I'm
out.
just like, I do not like that
Person.
pilgrimage outfit.
Right.
I don't like.
Right.
Okay, let me try. Listen, let me get in here.
Go
I'm the only
ahead.
guy on this
Yes,
panel.
represent for the man.
All right, let me get in here for real.
So, yeah,
Listen,
talk about it.
You got to be sexy and saved.
All right.
If you're a sister.
That's what she
You
said.
need to be
That's
and
what she
then for
said.
fellas, you need to be holy and handsome.
Okay.
And handsome.
All right.
Feel me?
Hallelujah.
So
With
listen,
cologne.
and the thing about
From
it
Lean
is,
Shoes.
listen,
No, I'm sorry,
there
go
you
ahead.
go. That's it. Gotta
Look,
come
we are
correct.
going on the tangent
So
here.
listen, at the end of the day, God created, and I was telling them offline. I said when I was doing some research from one of the questions is that there's a hierarchy God created.
Yeah.
So there's the friendship, then there is the date, then there's the courtship, then there's the marriage, then you have the hierarchy is God, Christ, then after Christ is husband, wife, and then kids.
Kids, that's
so
right.
when you take a brokenness or something broken in that relationship, you take the male out of the husband out, or you take the woman out, the wifey out, then you lose the covering. Because it's not just a covenant between you, God, and your queen or king. It's a covenant, and it is a commitment as well as that.
Yeah.
And so
That's true.
so now what I like about you is this as a human
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
You're beautiful, and I love this about you. I like how you wear. That's the human
Yeah.
side of it.
That's right.
That's when Adam woke up and saw and was like, yo, bet.
Yeah.
I'm in. Where's the ring? Where's the ring, bro? I said, you don't need a ring.
That's
It's just
right.
you and Eve.
You and
Hey,
Eve.
hey. You know, but when Adam drifted,
Yeah.
Eve got caught up.
Yeah.
And but instead of Adam taking the fall because he should have been close,
Right.
Adam was like, well, God, you gave her. You start
That's right.
blaming.
He started blaming.
And we do
That's
the
what we
same
do.
thing in our
That's right.
friendships, which
That's right.
stems into our relationships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And whether we're in a church relationship or a business professional relationship, we do the blame game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, let me get to know
Taking
my
ownership.
supervisor, my friend that I'm interested, or my boss, or let me get to know my church members And then you could be like, I can choose as a human to hang with you,
That's
or
right.
choose
Yeah.
not to hang with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I do too.
I like
Minister
that.
Fred, can I ask you a question on behalf of males? So, do you
Okay.
feel that there is pressure to find a woman that's maybe not, doesn't have a certain look to her appearance in terms of like,
Yeah,
I
there
guess
is
kind
pressure.
of going back to what you asked?
Listen, there's always pressure. Listen,
I
and
want
here's-
to say what, so we would
Say what you
understand, but I
gonna say.
can't. Go ahead,
Yeah,
you
say what
explain.
gonna
'cause
say. Yeah, I'm good. I'm about that
She
life.
wants to
She
hear
wanted
what
to be a well-rounded
So-
woman. That was
Yeah,
what she
well-rounded
wanted.
is good, but you need to look good when you come out the door.
Well, that's what she was referring
and
to.
here's the thing about it is, here's the thing. Look, from a male perspective or a guy, we're looking for someone that really is sharp as a holistically. They dress well, and not as a mask, but this is who they are.
Yeah.
So like when you
Just come
meet
correct.
somebody like you all, you just amazing, dynamic ladies. You look good. Your stuff is together. You're smart. You're intelligent. You hold a
thanks.
conversation. Now you got my attention. I'm like, what church you go to? You know, now and then it forces me as a guy or a man or a male to step up and like, oh, I can't come to her any kind of way.
That's right. Yeah.
But if you
That's
compromise on your end, I'd be like, yo,
Well, I
you just
can do
you
it,
pay
yeah.
for the bill and I just pick you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's very important that you understand your value, and that's both sides. But
Yeah.
since you asked from the
That's
guy,
Yeah.
I'm looking for somebody that looks great, loves the Lord, sexy and saved,
All right.
and not gonna compromise because I look
Yeah.
good.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Right.
If that
Yeah.
helps.
Yes.
Do that
You know what I
answer
mean?
you?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have
Do you have another
Well,
question?
My bag.
No,
my
you
bag.
were
you were
good.
good.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like
just
she's
to
a
go a little
follow-up.
Yeah.
deeper.
We're
So,
going in deep, people.
so when it comes to attraction, like, do you think that the church kind of makes it where you kind of shouldn't look at looks or something like that, basically?
Okay, so here, let me answer it this way. The challenge we have, and I mean it's one of your questions, but the challenges that we have, and especially in our now society, is that you have so much pressure to be or have a certain look without Christ. They want you to be sexy and not wear your stuff to this, to that, too tight, to this, and then the guy's got to be showing this, showing that, pants super tight, super, and there's no modesty or there's no balance. So then there's this extreme in the church, and I'm talking about kingdom, where they're like, don't do that. They go extreme, looking like all the way dresses to the floor, and guy wearing a 1960 suit. And it's 2024, and then they got the one in the world. It's like, yo, they looking like your boy Usher coming down there talking about, oh, you know what I mean? And so you got this dilemma.
Right.
So really, I believe that everything should be done in moderation and modesty.
Yes.
And so for us men, we're looking for someone that's beautiful, but also blessed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you are that beautiful type person, and you know what you want, and you can hold a conversation, I'm telling you,
Yeah. That goes a long way, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Beautiful and blessed. You heard
Yeah.
it here
All right,
first.
here it
You
is.
say.
That's right.
You already know.
I wanted to.
Go ahead.
I wanted to go back up, but the message was I forgot to pull it up on my phone, but Pat had said something up there, and I'm sorry, it went up a little bit. Pat G. Thank you. The topic of marriage and children are sacred and personal.
That's right.
If the targeted person does not invite you into that conversation, people need to understand it's rude to impose their thoughts onto others.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And we are actually, I will say, we are going into a society that follows that. Like, it's now a faux pas to mention these things. You're stepping on toes. Back in the day, if someone looked pregnant, you could be like, girl, you're pregnant, Now you do that, and
Yeah, like
it's,
what?
but it is rude. So I'm glad we're making these, these improvements, and we're growing to this space where you just mind your own business.
Yeah.
And when someone has news they want to share, they'll share it
They'll
with you.
share.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And we have a comment from someone who's watching us from Liberia, West Africa.
Salute.
Okay, hey Ernest.
Motherland, baby.
Thank you for
Motherland.
watching. We're glad you're enjoying.
Awesome.
I'm
Yes.
gonna bring it back, you guys. We're talking about marriage a lot and getting together.
Oh, here's the question. I'm sorry. Timmy, can I
yes, go
check
right
this
ahead.
question?
Yeah, go.
Why do single people allow themselves to be pressured by others about their relationship status? This is a form of bullying. Yes, it is, Hazel. Why don't anyone address the bullies? Well,
Okay.
I mean, we would be addressing it from the top, but hey.
Sipping my tea.
Right, correct, right?
Well, you know what? I think that's a conversation that when someone asks you or asks us or me, whoever, however you want to title that, about my status, I think that you can change that conversation to. So you're asking me that. Is there a particular reason
Right.
why?
You got someone?
So you can speak. Yeah, no, that's the question. But I'm saying, is there a reason?
Why are they trying to give you something? Like, are they trying to hook you up or something? Why are you asking?
Is that,
Yeah,
do you
I mean,
have a
that's
plan?
cool.
Right. What's
Solution?
the next question?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that just asking for context
Oh,
would be
yeah.
a better thing than necessarily assuming. It may not be that. It may that they're really trying to find out where you sit, where are you, and if
Yeah.
you got somebody in your life. So I think it's and then again we should know who we are.
Yeah.
Going to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then me, I'm still growing in Christ because I feel like
I love that, Juliet. Girl,
It's a disclaimer, everybody.
Right, exactly.
I like to respond with pettiness. Like if you ask an uncomfortable question, I'm going to ask you an uncomfortable question because I think, and I know yours was a growth area. You responded very well, and I appreciate. I'm going to learn from
Well,
what
you know, I'm a
said we
guy,
shouldn't
you know,
do.
and it's like we're a minority in the situation. We say something, we blackballed all the way across the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when people ask uncomfortable questions, it's very rude, especially if they're not in relationship with you.
That part. Yeah.
True.
Like,
And so
why?
when you ask
Gotcha.
uncomfortable questions, it is. My response oftentimes is, what motivated that? What,
Oh, that's
Well,
nice.
that's a-
That's
that's a
not.
good
That's
one. That's a
not.
good one.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
because it's
That was a really good one. Yeah.
But that's a good
Yeah.
That's a great way to
like,
frame it.
what do you?
And it wasn't a clapback. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It's
Right.
still
Yeah,
like
you know,
soft
I'll
and
be like,
gentle,
okay,
like-
You know,
so-
my friends laugh at me because I always say, "Interesting. Tell me more."
Tell me more.
Yeah.
What was your motivation
Yeah.
behind that
What made? What? Yeah. What was your thought?
Do you have a dating show? Pop the balloon.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying. What is it? Let us know.
You
If I can
crazy.
add too,
Oh, my
as
goodness.
singles, we are already fighting off so many things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, not just temptations, but distractions can come your way. You might have people coming to you saying, God told me that it's us. And it's like,
God did not
no,
tell
God
you.
did not tell you that.
Right.
Well, if he did, he got to tell me.
And
Right. That
So
part.
you can do what you want.
So-
I need to
That
know.
part.
So in terms of, you know, making the wrong choice, there could be a lot of choices being presented to that person. You don't know what they're going through
Right.
behind the scenes.
That's true.
And what they're fighting through.
Thank you, Danielle.
You
We
know,
needed you to
in
bring us
terms of
back home.
Context.
Fighting the
Yeah.
mud, you know,
Context.
through the mud
Context.
to get to someone that's worthwhile. Because
Right.
we're not going to abandon our singleness for someone that's not worthwhile.
That's
Because you said God told you.
Correct.
Exactly.
But I didn't hear him. You know, I was
Yeah.
calling. I might be talking about the wrong Bible text, but Samuel.
You're so wrong.
Right? Remember in the Bible
Yeah.
where he was calling?
Yes,
He
that
called
is
you,
correct.
right?
If you hear it again, follow through.
Yeah,
That's
for your
right.
servant hear it. And
That's
if you
right.
ain't the Lord, and the Lord would have to tell me if you were
Right.
the one.
Well, that goes both ways. He tells you, but
But
he
he gotta
also
tell
tells me.
everybody.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
Yeah,
right.
you bugging.
When
bugging.
Jesus was in Mary's room, he had angels go to Mary and Joseph. Right? He didn't
Yes,
just
he
tell
did.
one without the
No.
other, right? So you both go. What I love though about this conversation is we're hearing responses based on our experiences.
Yeah.
So I love hearing
Yeah.
Danielle's input because, as she stated earlier, this is not something that has necessarily plagued her in the way in which it has for us in the past, right? So her responses are more joyful, more positive, don't come from the same hurt place or,
Yeah.
same
Just different,
traumatized place.
different. Yeah,
So I love hearing everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought you were gonna say, but I was about to say something
No,
about
go
the chat.
ahead.
I'm taking.
Go ahead.
So I like what P. Gat said. I don't know if I'm sorry. Needed on a shirt. I am God's I'm not God answers to your prayers.
God's
Come on.
answer to your
Right.
prayers.
Well, it might be.
Well, that's true. I don't know, Pat. Maybe we are. P.
You know what
Jack.
I'm
Needed
saying?
on a shirt.
We
I
just
am
got,
not gonna-
but I
well,
think
yeah.
again, I
think-
think that's a conversation.
Yeah.
that
God
we
has
have
to tell
have
me.
with the Lord.
Tell us both.
Yeah, as somebody, you're interacting with someone who says they like you, they want you, blah
Yeah.
blah
That's
blah.
true.
I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, let God be the judge of that.
Absolutely.
And let us make the decision.
Absolutely.
And God gives us choice
He
as
does.
well.
Yes, he
right?
sure
That's-
does,
That's the
Danielle.
beauty of it.
You know,
Yeah.
even with Ruth, That man did not have to choose her. Boaz did not have to choose her.
And I think Boaz was probably good looking old man.
Right.
I never thought about that.
He was kind of old, wasn't he?
He was older
a
than
little
her.
older than her,
He was
but
older than her, but you
still
might
was
not have been old.
Because I've read
Yeah.
that story like Boaz was working hard and
Yeah. His own crew.
He was getting his bag up. So
Yeah,
when
he sure was.
and
he
he
could
was
have some.
prospering.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
he sure
But
was.
again, but
Yeah.
it goes back to us
And a good
making-
heart.
And but he saw her diligence.
Yep.
And he saw
That's
her
right.
steadfast and
That's right.
to stick with someone when you could go on back and
That's
go
right.
back to the same, but you wanted more. So again, it goes back to when a woman is handling her business.
Yeah.
That is sexy.
So he saw her inner beauty, but more.
Sexy
He saw her
and
outer beauty,
Inner
but also
and- that's
inner.
beautiful.
Right.
Like,
Hashtag
yeah. real.
sexy and safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
No, I
I
hear
will
you.
stop for that.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because I thank you for sharing that, Minister Fred. Because I think that, what I think was attractive about Boaz in reading the story was just his care and his observance.
That's it. Because
You know what I mean?
listen, men, we observe. We sit back and be like, okay, there's 20 of them. Let's check them. We check in to see what's up. What makes you stand out different? A better selection, a better choice, or why should I even have a conversation with you like to go to dinner? I'm not
Right.
doing that if you're not impressing me.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
From
Yeah.
the way you carry yourself as well as how you look and how you move.
Or if you're not approachable either.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
gotta be
that's crucial.
approachable.
I'm out.
And can
I'm
we
out.
bring this out real quick? I see Teresa Hardison said, she said, my husband and I met at an SDA social.
All right now.
And just reunited after 25 years, face red heart shape. That was like so sweet.
I love
I like
that. That's
Thumbs up.
beautiful. Yeah.
And then you were putting emphasis up. Is it wrong dating someone out of your faith?
Good question.
That's the question.
So I would say, and this I'm just going to keep it 100.
Okay.
I think again it goes back to developing a friendship and seeing where their relationship and having those conversations. Now I'm not saying jump in a relationship if it's outside the scope of Christianity or blah blah blah, but I'm saying at the end of the day, people are in different levels of grace, and I think that's what Kurt Franklin talked about in his conversation.
Yep.
It doesn't mean just move and jump just because you see it and it looks great. It means okay, develop a friendship and see where if they love the Lord more than anything.
That's right.
And then share the gospel from your perspective and say, hey, this is why I do what I do. You want to come hang? You want to come visit? Blah 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 blah, and then give them time to be there.
Yeah.
And can I say too
Sure.
that just because someone is of your faith doesn't mean that they're equally yoked necessarily.
Please.
Girl, speak on it.
Because you can, people can be in very different places and
Absolutely.
even within the church have very different ideas about
That's right.
what that looks like in
That's
terms
right.
of being Adventist.
So this concept of equally yoked is not
Equally
just
yoked.
about religion.
Right.
It expands broader, way broader than that, right?
Right.
And I think where Robbie brought out was, is it wrong or is it wise?
Come on now.
Right.
Come on
That's-
now.
that's another
a whole nother
distinction.
question.
And
Yeah.
heavy, baby. That's a heavy
Yeah.
one. That make you think more than twice.
Yeah,
Right.
it does. It does. Because I like what you were saying, Minister Fred, about understanding, just really sitting and having a conversation with them about their belief system, who they are, what's their character. What for me, what's important is where do you desire to grow?
Yeah.
What is your flexibility? And I'm not saying flexibility in standards
Correct.
or values.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I am
do
saying
have to be
flexibility
flexibility
in
in a relationship.
understanding
Yeah.
what this person's walk with Christ is like. If it doesn't look like yours, you know what I'm saying? Or understand being in not so rigid to the point that you can't hear someone's experience, because just because their experience is different doesn't mean they don't have to be for you.
Right.
Well, and the other thing, let me just jump and say, because I do street ministry and I'm always traveling a lot. What I've learned in terms of, and this goes back to Kirk. Kirk sitting there with Cam smoking a cigar, doing what he do, but it wasn't about the cigar. When I'm doing stuff, trench work, and I'm in the community, when I'm in housing, when I'm doing whatever, and they know me as Mr. Whitlow, not Minister Fred, what do they see? What is the experience?
Yeah.
When they just see you as a person, a
Right.
human being,
Right.
what do they experience? And what I've learned, especially, and then even when you look at the New Testament, the struggle was with traditional church and the Gentiles that said, man, wherever Jesus go, I'm down. Somebody was talking about circumcision. They were like, I don't want you touching me. No circumcision. You know what's most important. And we talked about
He sure
that,
did.
Distractions.
Necessary
What's
distractions.
necessary
Yep.
versus unnecessary. Does that make sense? And it's not to say that biblical truth is going to always stand, but there's variations of how people live. And if somebody's come through single parent home, abused, blah, 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 they have to deal with learning how to trust.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Forget the Jesus piece. They
That's
don't know
right.
how to trust a man or a woman.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, once they learn to trust God, then it'll trickle down into how they trust people or interact with us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they may not have that experience.
And my goal for me too, just personally, is I want others to be able to see the love of Christ through me,
Yes.
through my actions. I don't have to preach and throw the Bible up for you to know I'm a Christian. I want you to be able to see Tiffany, how she acts, how she responds, and know, oh, that girl has the love of Christ within her. And I'm human, so God,
And
like
I'm-
she said, God's still working on us. But that is always my goal.
Yes.
That's
And
what
Pastor
Kirk
Snell
said.
talked about that today, the fruit. Okay. Make sure you have that fruit.
That's right. All right.
Exactly.
And that's so funny because the fruit of the Spirit is a whole bunch of things.
Yes.
Love, joy, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah.
There's a lot
So
of
make
them.
one
That's
fruit,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
one piece.
That's
one
right.
person.
Right.
Okay, I'm out.
So, I mean, there's so many ways that we can go, but we are actually winding down. Can you believe it? Honestly,
We got to do the necessary distraction.
we'll go there.
Okay.
Mr. Fred is
Everybody got
getting
busy,
excited.
you know
I
what I'm
know,
saying?
right? Shout out to Chantel. Hey.
Can we read her comment real quick?
Absolutely.
That's my sister-in-law.
Read it.
Well, that makes sense.
It says, unequally yoked is a non-believer with a believer. It's not religion-based.
That's
I was
right.
a Christian,
Now, say
but
that.
not SDA, and my husband was SDA, and God brought us together.
Oh, my
19
goodness.
years.
Congratulations.
Yes. I love y'all so
I
much.
can't imagine
Yes.
a world without her in it,
Right.
in our world, our community. So I'm so
Right.
excited. And I know so many stories where that is the case. So
Yeah.
Chantel, thank you for highlighting that. That's absolutely correct. I'm trying to get 2 questions. And I'm going to try.
Okay, we're gonna try that. We're gonna
We're
try
going
that.
to get Minister
Maybe we
Fred's
can do it.
question.
Yo, listen.
Okay.
This is
So Kirk mentioned that Paul called marriage a necessary distraction. How do you interpret that in today's context, especially for those in ministry? And I'm going to start with Minister Fred,
Yeah, I'm
who
gonna
is
get in.
actually in ministry, as we all are, but you know.
So listen, you sent that question. I was like, yo, this is the dopest question for me on the sheet, right? And I started studying and reading about that, and the Holy Spirit revealed something outside what I read. And it was, here's the thing. God created the things that are uncomfortable and things that are that seemingly to be distracting in our human nature. So God created the plan for marriage. God created good relationships. Now it is a distraction from the world because the world is like, do what you want, sleep what you want, call yourself what you want, do what you want, move like you want. Jesus is like, I got a design, follow this, and it seems distractive, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Living in God's manner, God's way, His design is super necessary because we'll find ourselves in those areas, especially as singles. If we're not doing that, we're gonna fall off to, not just infidelity and abstinence, celibacy. This abstinence, celibacy, or messing around. You got all these things, and they're distractions in the flesh, but they're necessary in the spirit.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading that, I was like, yo, Kirk is on something. And he did it in a way that wasn't churchy.
Yes, he did.
He just said, listen, man,
He did.
listen, marriage has been a blessed thing for me because,
Right.
man, I didn't have a father. I didn't do this. I was a player. I was this, all that stuff because it wasn't, and it was unnecessary versus once he got with Tammy and he got his life together and he still had issues, but he had somebody to say, man, I'm about to fall off. I got you. I got you.
That's
I
right.
got you. I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
And that's what the relationship is and should be.
That's right.
Where you're walking that road to get
Together.
Yeah.
family and marriage.
Yeah.
So, I was like, yo, this is dope.
That is, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I like how you broke that down because I was just receiving it. I didn't really have a lot of feedback from the question because I think I understood it better too when you were just explaining it, which was him saying what that meant as a necessary distraction. So I appreciate how you interpreted that.
And it helps us as single people and people married to analyze and say, well, my ministry as a single person is this. My ministry as a father, a mother, a married person is this, because I have a support that maybe the world doesn't think, because the world says like, man, you just live together. You don't need to be married.
Right. Yeah.
It's not necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
But the Bible says it is a serious necessary.
Yeah.
But it's distractive to the world.
Yeah.
The Bible-
Yeah.
Jesus said, I hate the world. You mad at me because you hate me because you love the world.
Right. Right.
So the world's got its own thing. We got our own thing.
That's
if
right.
we roll it. And then the context of marriage is, and ministry is when you get relationship right, whether it's friendship, dating, courtship, marriage, you get a longevity and a balanced ministry
That's
for
right.
your calling.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Fuse or whether it's hip hop ministry or
That's
whether
right.
it's trench work or whether it's this type of ministry where you drop in science
I agree.
and salvation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I love what Hazel Boyce said about Ruth, and it's something we've talked about before, but I just want to highlight it again. She says that Ruth found Boaz while serving, not seeking.
Yes.
I see that. That is real. That's
Get
right.
out here and serve.
Correct. That's what she was
Yo,
doing.
that's one of those spoken
Yeah,
word pieces,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Thank you, Hazel. She says, as long as you're walking in God's purpose for your life,
Yep.
that is what matters. God will add to your life when he deems it necessary. And that's such a nice reminder. I know I wish I thought of it like that, but
Yes,
thank you,
and
Hazel.
the way she said
So,
it.
She said
yeah.
necessary.
Necessary,
What's your name?
yeah. I love
What's
that.
What's
Nice
your
reminder
name
that
is?
God's got something for you, right? Look at y'all
You got
cutting
my
up over here.
attention.
Over here.
And the Bible talks about too when a woman gets married that she no longer can really focus on God. She now has to please her husband. So I don't know the exact place. Okay, don't crucify me, but
It's in there.
it's in there.
But it's a
Read your
love thing,
Bible.
But it's a love thing. And, Kirk talked about that.
Yeah, he did.
He talked
He did.
about that love because now
In the partnership.
his whole focus is love.
That's right.
And
Yep.
so he don't have no reason to step out and do that because
That's
he love
right.
his boo.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
And
desires
what
are
they've
first.
created, the family and the unit they've created.
And you creating something like that, you coming home.
That's
Yeah.
right. Correct.
That's
Correct.
how you
That's
get
right.
through
He
rocking
said
the
he had
stage.
his kids come with him.
With him.
He said, "Look, I was in Africa. My kids were homeschooled in Africa.
And my
Tammy
wife
was
was
there
there
too."
too.
That's right. That's what he said.
Then you give it. It's a give and take.
You gotta figure it out. Yeah.
Love your wifey as you love the church and willing to give
Right.
your life. So that's why I love that you talked about giving, marriage and sexuality.
So when you
'Cause
do
all
it
of us
right,
in there.
ministry,
Oh, man.
marriage,
a
and
bang
ministry
out.
can go hand in hand.
Yes.
It's
and
about
be-
that life.
And that's a
That's
true
right.
power couple.
Yeah,
If
that's
it's,
true.
in my mind.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's true. So I got one more question, y'all,
Okay,
because
we
we are
got
for
one-
real.
we got one
We
minute
really
each. Okay.
correct. So one more question, we talked a little bit about how do we break the cycle of weaponizing these different things and what does that look like within our church community. So this question is, how can we as a community foster a culture that values singleness as much as marriage, allowing both to be seen as valid and God-honoring paths? Let me repeat it. I'm gonna let y'all
please.
think about it again.
Because I was looking at the text.
Yeah, I
and
want to
then
know
my
what
mind
y'all
got distracted.
think. So I'm gonna repeat it again. So, how can we as a community?
Okay.
So that's not just singles, but just as a
community.
community. Correct.
Kingdom.
As a
right.
king. There
All
you
right,
go.
Kingdom community.
Thank you, Minister
Got
Fred. How can we foster a culture that values singleness as much as marriage, right? And allowing for both to be seen as valid and God-honoring paths. So we talked about how God can work with us even in our singleness. It's not a deterrent. He can use us in
Yes.
either state.
And I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say in platforms like this, continuing to educate our community at large
Right.
on the ways that we have not, or some singles have not felt a part. who or the experience has been, or we feel like we have been weaponized or placed in this space, and educating people on how the things that they say, or the ways that they behave, the ways that they isolate or avoid or whisper impact. And I think that in education, then now those who are listening, if they have the ears to hear, they will be able to take accountability for their behavior and shift. And then on the inside with us, we then are able to say, okay, my healing is not based on their time.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or
that's
their
where I wanna go.
response.
Or their response.
That's right,
And
because
so
they may
then-
not ever get there.
Never. But
We hope that's not the case, but that's a
That's a
reality. Yeah,
possibility,
that's a
right?
possibility.
so it's accepted.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's also us then showing love.
Yeah.
And learning,
Yeah.
like from Danielle
Yep.
being younger, and learning
Yeah.
from each of us in our generation.
And not repeating.
And not repeating. And showing people,
Yeah.
you know, it's not okay. Like you said, people who've come to you or have sometimes divorcees saying, Danielle,
Take
don't
your time.
take your time.
Yeah.
Don't rush, you
That's
know?
right.
And so us being able to feed that message to one another and show love, show purpose, show excitement, so hashtag sexy and saved.
All right.
And live.
So that was what I was gonna say. Like, oh, sorry, Mr.
ahead,
Fred,
go
I
ahead,
didn't
go
mean
ahead, you
to
good.
cut you off, but I was gonna touch on that. Is that we got to show them that it's okay to be single,
Yes.
and regardless
And
of
still
what
desire love.
and still desire love for some of us, and some don't. But we still can live. We're still living our
Yes.
best lives as singles, still allowing God to use us in ministry and to be productive in society and in ministry. Right?
Yes. I was going to say the same point. Like, we can be active in service and show people what that can look like as a devoted single person.
Right. Absolutely.
So I would say two things that I thought of when I saw that is one, as a community of kingdom or kingdom community, one would be that we do not compare or compete between singleness and marriage.
Absolutely.
Marriage.
Yes. It does not have to be a competition.
Because it's still an
Yeah.
extension of the one kingdom
That's
family.
right.
Yeah.
So I
That's
would say
right.
that would be one.
Yeah.
And then I think number two would be understand that what made the Church of Acts, the beginning church, so successful is that they came together, fellowship.
Yep.
They ate together. I mean, they did socials. They got together. They studied together, and then they celebrated each other's uniqueness in kingdom.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you know, that is like another whole thing. So that marriage becomes a byproduct of all these beautiful things as single people moving into different spaces. It's
Different
a cycle
phases.
of
Absolutely.
kingdom excellence.
That's right.
That
So
makes
next
sense.
year, the Valentine's Day is going to include us.
Yeah, y'all need to check that.
Shout out to the Mary Ministries.
Y'all gonna have to mobile your way in.
That's all right.
That don't even make sense for us to come.
That's okay. We're gonna do our own Valentine's,
will.
and because we're still living, right? Still
Living your
enjoying.
best life, baby.
That's right.
But it can't be corny.
let
I
me
don't
know
like
when.
those corny singles.
Well, we don't do anything corny.
I know. Oh, you're right. But you know, sometimes you see
I don't
those.
do
Oh no,
corny.
yeah, no.
I don't do
And it's not
corny.
gonna. Anyway, yeah, we're getting on a whole tangent.
This
First
is a
of all,
sidebar, people, sidebar.
two things. I see that there's a comment. I'm gonna let Juliet or Danielle read it, and then I have one announcement before we go.
Okay, so Bonzi Bones says, not all marriages are healthy. Remember, God can use you anytime, anywhere.
That's
God
right.
is your judge, not others.
That's right.
Do not allow others to lower your standards.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yes, absolutely.
Singleness is a blessing for a season or longer.
That's
Yes.
right.
Cool.
I love that. I love one ending up on that note.
Yes.
I do. Thank you so much for that. And also, okay, so one, I want to say thank you, panelists, for
you,
this
Tiffany, for being
conversation.
Thank you,
Of
Tiffany.
course. And thank you, audience, for engaging and giving your advice and your thoughts. We really appreciate and love this community that we're forging. And Minister Fred, you talked a little bit about activities and having things to do. Can you give us a quick little blurb about an event that you have coming up?
So every year we do something citywide at Big Spring Park East. It's always the first Sunday in October. So this is our
That's a
fourth
wonderful
year.
month.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just my birthday month. You know what I mean?
Get out mine too.
October 8th. You know what I
I'm the
mean?
7th.
Really?
Look at
Wow.
this.
Yo.
All right, all right, Jody.
So this, I'm in good hands.
Yeah,
This is
you
not
are.
all state. This is Fuse.
That's right.
So listen, it's called the Good Music and Arts Festival. It's 100% family friendly.
Okay.
Christian faith based. Obviously, we have all kind of artists. I think last year we had James Fortune. This year we got Titus Showers and some other main artists, gospel artists. So it's free.
Okay. Oh, we like that.
And it's again
That's right.
October 6th.
Okay,
and
so
it's
that's your
from
birthday celebration?
Oh, every
Is that
month,
what you
every
do?
year. Is this we get
I
down.
like that. Okay.
nice.
How can we find out more information about it?
We'll get you the flyer, and then you can
Okay.
also go to nomoredirty.org.
Okay. Thank you.
NoMoreDirty.org.
Thank
or
you.
nmdinc.org. Same thing.
Okay. No
Yeah,
more
so we'll
dirty
get you the
.org.
information and just come on
So-
out. It's free.
Y'all,
Yes.
and the other thing I want to highlight is Fuse is an active ministry here at Oakwood
Come on
University
now.
Church, right?
Yes,
Yes,
it
we
is.
are.
So if you are interested in just hearing more about what we have to do, there are a couple of things you can do. Number one, join our Facebook page, right? So that is Fuse OUC Singles. Our Facebook page is Fuse OUC Singles. And if you're a little more old school or like to read an email, you can feel free to message me at tiffany.marie82@gmail.com. Tiffany with the Y .marie82@gmail.com, and I'll add you to our email list so that you are up to date on all the things that we have going on. We want to again thank you all for participating today, and remember, Committed and Covered is once a month, every third Sabbath, Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
See y'all later.
Bye.